Hi, I'm Rhonda Gaskins, broker Century 21 Lake Area Realty in the Lake Martin area. On average, our sales price are commanding a strong 96% of list price. Call me today and let me get started for you. 256-749-3644.
Hi, welcome into our matchup preview show. I'm Lizi Arbogast with Central Alabama Voice alongside Caleb Brooks, and it is the final week of the regular season.
Pretty crazy.
It really
is. It flies by every year, but you just don't realize it when you're going through it, how fast it all goes
even
by.
more so this year, because we kind of all thought, is the season
we
going to
didn't know what was
happen?
gonna
Is
go
it going to get cut short? So, but here we are, last game of the regular season. So, good slate of non-region games this week. We'll start off with Thursday night. Central Phenix City is headed to Oxford for the AHSAA TV Game of the Week.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one there. Central Phenix City played for the 7A state championship last year. Oxford won the 6A state championship. They played Thompson at the beginning of the year, who beat Central Phenix City for the title and lost by 22 to them. Which was a tough test. We've seen how good Thompson is. They've now moved up to number 4 in the whole country, so they're obviously pretty good. And Oxford played with them pretty well, so this would be a good test for them. For Phenix City, they start off rough, losing to Eufaula, losing to Hoover, and then from that point on, they've only lost one game, and it was a 1-point loss to Auburn, who there's a pretty decent chance they're going to see them again. So it's a big game for Phenix City, and it's a big game for Oxford, just continuing the momentum that they've been able to kind of build up throughout the regular season into the postseason.
Yeah, I think it's always good to end on a tough game when you're headed into the playoffs, especially.
The only hard part is you don't want to get any injuries. You don't want to have any, and that worries you. But you want to test yourself a little bit. You don't want to just play. You've kind of gotten going with playing these big games, region games.
Exactly.
And so you don't want to just drop that off. And so I like that these two teams are playing each other. And I think that they'll both kind of tell you that who they're going to play in the first round probably isn't as good as who they're going to be playing this week.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Also on Thursday night, Montgomery Academy is at Alabama Christian. Both teams are region champions, and another one, keep that momentum going with a good game to end the regular season.
Yeah, the only teams that have beaten Alabama Christian are in Montgomery, with St. James, and then with Montgomery Catholic, I think, at the beginning of the year. So. Or not with St. James being the only team that's beaten. They only got one loss. So, and then on Academy side over there, they beat Trinity in a tough game 2 weeks ago. And now you get a big tough test here with Alabama Christian. And Alabama Christian surprised me and Randy were talking about that just a minute ago. They have a losing record all time in their school history. It's not a team that you normally see in this position. And they dominated their region. And credit to them and what they've done. I know they have a quarterback down there that's really, really good, and so it's going to be fun to kind of follow them in the playoffs because they don't get there too often, but when they do, they seem to always make some noise.
Yeah. On Friday night, Holtville is at Reeltown. Holtville on a high after that big win over Sylacauga. They're hosting a playoff game for the first time since 1987.
Yeah,
is that right?
86.
86, even better. They're going up against a Reeltown team that is missing the playoffs, so that's going to be interesting how that plays out. But if I know anything about Coach Matt Johnson, everybody knows I'm a big fan of Coach Johnson. I know that he's not going to just say, oh, well, we're out, so let's just give up. They're going to fight.
He's going to fight. It's going to be interesting to see how the team treats it. They're not used to being in this situation. So how do the players answer after a really tough year, especially a tough second half of the year? They've lost 3 of their last 4.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of go into this game. And it's going to be interesting for Holtville, too, because they're coming off a pretty physical game with Sylacauga. A lot of running. The running back had 208 yards on 25 carries. So, it was a lot of pounding, and now you're heading in the playoffs. So how does Holtville treat this game? Do they just play their starters for a half and then try to get them some rest for the next week and not risk getting in? So this will be an interesting game to follow. And I'm interested to see how Reeltown ends the season because I know they probably don't want to end below 500. And so, we kind of saw with Benjamin Russell last year and how they played against Valley. I think that's kind of how you'll see Reeltown treat this game of, hey, while we're not getting in the playoffs, we want to finish with a 500 or better record this year.
I agree. St. James is at Trinity for a really good rivalry game and should be a really good game itself. Both of these teams are sitting at 7-2 on the season.
Yeah, St. James they could basically walk right up the road and go play at Trinity. They could
That's
really,
like their warm up.
Yeah, they could get dressed at their stadium and just walk across the street and go play. But it's a big rivalry game. They don't like each other.
Yeah.
It's one they talk about. I was down there a couple of weeks ago, and Trinity was about to play Montgomery Academy, and then they, their coach kind of talked about it. He said, we got another big rivalry game in a couple of weeks, and while it's a non-region game, it's still one they don't want to lose. And Trinity has outscored their opponents 260 to 66 this year.
That's
Pretty insane. And
insane.
St. James on the other side, they've only lost to MA and then ACA. That's what it was. I got mixed up. So they've only lost to Montgomery Academy and ACA, who are playing against each other, and they're two of the better teams. So really, really good matchups. MA beat Trinity also, and then Trinity lost earlier in the year to Catholic. So all the Montgomery schools are just kind of beating each other, but they're all really good, and it's going to be fun to follow them and see how they all do in their respective classifications over the next weeks.
I agree with you there. Clay Central heads to Handley. Again, nice tune-up game for both of these teams. Obviously, Clay Central, back-to-back state champions, and looking for a three-peat heading into this playoff stretch.
It's their biggest challenge since Pleasant Grove for Central Clay,
for sure.
and for Handley, it's their biggest challenge all year. They've had some COVID issues, games canceled early in the year, but they're undefeated and they're really good. And they've got Tennessee commit Dylan Brooks on the defensive line that can really rush the passer and cause some havoc. So going to be a really interesting game. It's one of them, like we just talked about. It's two really good teams that are going to be physical. And so how do they handle this game? How do they treat this game?
Right.
And does this game affect them leading in the next week when they're going to be playing some hungry 4 seeds next week?
Yeah, I agree. Our game of the week is Benjamin Russell at Sylacauga. They are renewing this rivalry. They haven't played each other since 2007. Obviously, not far away from each other, these two schools are, and I'm excited to see this game. Haven't gotten a chance to see Benjamin Russell after watching them for 3 years straight.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it, and obviously Sylacauga is a really, really strong team. So
tough start of the year for Benjamin Russell, but you look back at some of the games and they were beating Helena, rain delay hits, and all of a sudden things fall apart. Beating Wetumpka, had a chance to be up 21-7 in that game and dropped a touchdown pass, end up losing that one. You're beating Smith Station at halftime, you lose that one. 14-12 with Pelham, you don't score. And so, they were in a lot of these games, just didn't finish. The last 2 weeks they've been able to finish, and I think getting a win over Chilton County the way they did and finishing the game and getting to see a win was big because they just dominated Calera last week, who's been scoring on people, and that was what was impressive. Played really good defense, scored points on offense, and it's a dangerous game for Sylacauga, who had played so well, built up all this momentum. Next thing you know, you're looking at a 2-game losing streak heading into the playoffs if you don't lose this one, and you're traveling after you thought you could be hosting. And so things could really snowball in Sylacauga here at the end of the year if they don't bounce back and get a big win in this game.
Yeah, I'm excited to see them renew this rivalry for sure. So again, it's the last week of the regular season, so it's crazy that we got here, that we even are playing at this point, and I'm excited to see where it leads us the next 5 weeks.
No, and we've had cancellations and stuff, but for the most part, this has been probably better than what anybody could have expected this year.
By far,
I'm really, really excited for next week and getting these games that really, really mean something going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank y'all for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.